Take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
CannabisRadio.com presents The Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Hey, this is great, man.
Now, here's your host, Radical Russ Belville.
Good day, tokers and tokettes and non-toking lovers of liberty. It is Wednesday, April 20th, 2016, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. Hell, it's got to be 420 everywhere in the world. Except the United Kingdom. There, it's 24. But I digress. It's 420. What a beautiful day. I hope you're having a great 420 celebration. I'm still here at the United Nations. I'm currently parked in the United Nations cafeteria, taking a break between the morning and the afternoon sessions at the United Nations General Assembly Special Sessions on International Drug Control Policy. And today I sat in on a roundtable discussion featuring many of the countries around the world, some of them very die-hard, strict prohibitionist countries like Indonesia or Nigeria, other countries like Israel that have moved forward, Sweden that have some other policies. We'll get to hear from all of them, the good, the bad, and the ugly, coming up on today's special 420 edition of the Russ Belville Show. Since I'm here at the UN, I can't do the show live. This is pre-recorded, and I'm going to bring you the highlights from some of the countries that spoke at this roundtable. I've also got some highlights of some of the other events that have been taking place around New York City, interviews with some of the great activist leaders out here. Last night, I was able to attend the Museum of Drug Policy, where Melissa Harris Perry, formerly of MSNBC, filmed her first ever Nerdland Forever podcast, independently that is, from MSNBC, her first ever podcast at the museum speaking about the war on drugs. It was a 2-hour show. We'll give you a couple of highlight clips from that as well. And then coming up in hour 2, Toker Talk Radio, we've got that second half of that policy forum that took place at New York University on Sunday. Mark Kleiman and Botech sponsored this, and it was about treating marijuana as a temptation good. A temptation good, which is not the Temptations, who are good, but no, we're talking about treating marijuana as if it were alcohol, tobacco, pornography, prostitution, or gambling. And of course, the only difference is that none of those things have medical benefits, do they? That's all coming up today on the Russ Belville Show, your special 420 edition here from New York City. Later on in the day, I will be traipsing around New York, finding other 420 events to bring you. We'll give you the highlights for those on tomorrow's show. Thanks for your support. Thanks for your well wishes. Thanks for your advice and commentary. Appreciate all the fans of Cannabis Radio and the Russ Belville Show for getting me here. This has been the culmination of 10 years worth of activism, and I'm really excited to be here at the international level. All right, we're going to take a break, pay some bills, and when we come back, highlights from the United Nations Roundtable on combating international drug problems.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
When you are starting up a medical cannabis business, you want a fired-up lawyer who understands the needs of cannabis consumers. The Law Office of Lauren Vasquez is your fired-up lawyer for the cannabis industry. Visit her website, fireduplawyer.com, or call 1-855-MMJ-LAWS for more information. That's 855-665-5297 for Lauren Vasquez, your fired-up lawyer, or email fireduplawyer@gmail.com.
Educator, author, and advocate Dr. Mitch Earlywine is here to tackle the burning issues.
And I'm here to clear up the myths about cannabis and burn them away with science.
CannabisRadio.com presents a no-holds-barred platform that seeks to redefine and revolutionize the entire scope of the cannabis culture while opening the door for more to join the cannabis crusade.
Dr. Kevin Hill.
You can't ignore the fact that, like alcohol, most people who use don't have a problem. So I think that You need to think about policy in that way while educating people properly about marijuana. I think that's the way to go.
Burning Issues, only on CannabisRadio.com.
Dr. Dabber, hurry! Its temperature is shooting past 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It's burning up.
I'm afraid for this little guy, it's just too late.
What caused the problem?
Only Dr. Dabber can maintain the perfect temperature for a smooth-tasting, slower burn. This standard vaporizer lost all of its health benefits, sending it up in smoke.
So you're telling me that most vapor pens burn so hot they produce smoke, not vapor?
Correct. Keep away from those standard vaporizer pens and turn to Dr. Dabber. Doctor's orders.
Less heat, more flavor.
Activism begins with ACT. The Russ Belville Show features the stories of hardworking grassroots activists working for an end to prohibition in today's activist agenda.
Welcome back, everyone. Today, for our activist agenda, we are concentrating on the United Nations General Assembly special session here in New York City, where the international delegates are discussing the war on drugs and what should be done about that, if anything. Today, I was sitting in on a roundtable discussion amongst many of the member nations about the impact of organized crime and other criminal elements, including terrorism, as they are involved with this war on drugs. Another subject that was brought up repeatedly in this roundtable was what they called the scourge of NPS, new psychotropic substances, or something we here in America call designer drugs. There were 20 or more delegates that spoke at this event. We're going to bring you some highlights of some of the best speeches, or worst speeches, depending on your point of view. Here's my favorite. This is the delegate from Sweden, probably the only person I've heard speak at the United Nations this entire 2 days who's actually smoked marijuana. Enjoy.
Thank you for letting me speak here today. I will tell you a short story of a little boy. He was born in the 16th town in Sweden, grew up in a poor family with his father who drank too much. There was some violence in the family, and the boy started drink alcohol with his father when he was 10 years. He started grow marijuana when he was 12 and smoke hashish when he was 13 years. He learned as a child that he should not talk too much about what's happened in the family because we stick together. He quit smoking cannabis at 18 when he tried amphetamine at the first time, which got him hooked from the start because he made him calm and focused. At the same time, of his friends came up with the idea of buying larger quantity of hashish, sell to other friends, and make money enough to his own to drug for his drug of choice. Pretty soon he was pushing drugs regularly because his circle of friends just grew bigger and bigger. Not talking too much about himself and what he was up to was a big help from him to dealing drugs. We stick together. Came to include his friends. The group saw the rest of society as a threat to what they were doing. Society was the enemy and not the drugs and the crime. Instead, drug use and drug dealing became the normal way of life of the young man. Deep inside, he knew, as probably most of his friends, that his way of life was wrong. But because they never talked about it, they never saw the way out. Also, nobody offered them any help. So a feeling of being hunted was always there. The little boy was me. When I came out from the prison in 1998, after being sentenced 4.5 years in prison for serious drug crime and weapon offense, I decided to take different route in my life. At the same time, I started motivating other former addicts and criminals who wanted to change their life. I built and working for a popular movement with former criminal and drug abusers, which is present now in many places in Europe. After about 10 years, we built a new movement in around 30 cities in Sweden, and this is the organization which I work with today, XCONS. XCONS is an organization of former addicts and criminals. It's a cost-efficient alternative to other options for the society to invest in. As a former addict and criminal, I was involved in running and building up two of Europe's largest crime drug prevention organizations. Unfortunately, there were no state resources to support our work. Although inmates in the Swedish prison decreased by about 8%, and we were one of the factors contributing to it. We were forced to scale down our operations and are now looking into ways to expand again. One option we were looking at is social enterprises. The system are currently not built to support people to quit using drugs and criminal activities. Instead, resources are put on use when they continue to be criminals and drug addicts. We support the industry that thrives of people with problems. More resources are needed to support initiatives which help people reform their addiction and criminal behaviors. Tougher penalties against drug abusers do not help people. It only helps the market to thrive with higher prices. We must not forget that one day the drug addict can be yourself, your child, any of your friends and co-workers on their children or someone else close to you. So why not do the things that work and help prevent that? In all this year, I have been addicted or a criminal, or after I stopped. I didn't know what member states were doing about this, but now, for the first time, I understand a bit more. And I'm not the only former addict criminal who does not know the work being done on this level. I'm very sorry to say it, but the world and the member states will fail if they don't support social movements or organizations in the world working on crime and drug prevention, to strengthen the people and organizations who themselves has own experience in drugs and crime, or those who work closely with people who are and have been in substance abuse and crime but changed, or want to change their life, can make the fight against organized crime and drug abuse more effective on several levels. I was born and raised in Sweden, and at very early age we were taught that with the right support we can solve our problem ourselves. More resources are needed to support work such as ours, popular movements involving large segment of the population, which has proven to be effective in preventing drug use and crime. And I have some points to tell. I urge the United Nations and the countries in the world who are serious about fighting drugs and crime to actively support the individuals and organizations, including NGOs, to strengthen networks that help people who come out from prison or treatment, or those that are in alternative program to prison. Number 2, I call upon member states of UN to use their citizens as a resource to offer support that can change their life instead of seeing them as a lifelong problem. Deep down in everyone looks for a life without drugs and crime, but help and support are needed and abuse cannot be punished away. And everybody wants to be somebody and even maybe a hero for his nation. As citizens and taxpayers in the member states, we want to focus on what works. When you come home to implement what you are decide on here, use us criminals and former addicts and others as a resource for a better society and for prevention. Number 3, I urge member states to remove bureaucracy for business that are working for social betterment in the area of drugs and crime and put money on long-term solutions for these activities and not just short-term projects. 4, I urge member states to condemn the death penalty because it's a primitive behavior in a modern world. Thank you.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
With over 6 years of experience in the industry, New Era CPAs is one of the nation's leading cannabis accounting firms, helping hundreds of growers, dispensaries, and ancillary companies with their tax, legal, and business strategies. New Era CPAs offices cover the West Coast from Seattle to San Diego, and their skilled team is always available to help you take your business to the next level. Visit neweracpas.com for more info and set up a consultation. Welcome to the New Era.
Ganjapreneur.com, your guide to the cannabis business world. Ganjapreneur.com is a comprehensive resource for cannabis professionals and entrepreneurs. Download the Ganjapreneur app on your smartphone or tablet to catch up on cannabis industry news, scroll through our daily job listings, and learn about successful cannabis companies, executives, and investors. Ganjapreneur.com, helping Ganjapreneurs grow.
Reforming America's marijuana prohibition laws takes education, lobbying, and voting. From Washington, D.C. to your state capital to your city hall, marijuana law reform involves all levels of civic life. Learn how you can make your impact with elected officials as we take a look at our government at work. We continue our show with Government at Work here at the United Nations. We now hear from the delegate from Nigeria.
Thank you. Thank you, Co-Chair. Thank you for giving me the floor. Taking into account the alarming increase of cannabis cultivation in West African sub-region, especially in Nigeria, we have come apprehensive about the move for legalization of cannabis by some member countries. Nigeria stands and frowns against any attempt to legalize cannabis, as this will weaken and impede government's efforts to dismantle criminal networks while increasing transnational organized crimes and other emerging forms of crime to flourish. The cultivation and trafficking of cannabis remains a challenge in Nigeria, and the emerging trends of warehousing cannabis in rural communities across the country continues to pose a daunting challenge in addressing the cultivation problem. The significant seizures of cannabis made in 2015 of over 2,000 hectares as a result of the strengthening partnership of the drug law enforcement agencies with local communities has improved our collaboration efforts. This has increased our nation's resolve to continue to adopt measures to sustain our drive on alternate development programs. It is our sincere, my notes are going over. It is our sincere hope that this special session will be recorded in history as a period when the international community will rise up to its responsibilities in this regard by adopting effective strategies to achieve our collective goals. The discovery of the 11th methamphetamine lab in Nigeria shows a new sophisticated trend in place to avoid law enforcement and monitoring officers. Criminal networks now use benzahydride and other nitroethane that are precursors to the precursors to avoid detection, as these chemicals are not under international surveillance. We acknowledge the efforts of member states in collaboration as regards the fight against the version of precursors as illicit use. It is important to urge member states, as a family of nations and in the interest of global peace, that we must awaken to our collective responsibility to beef off our international monitoring. This calls for an enactment of effective and sustainable strategies while noting the principle of sovereignty and respect for member states. We need to take cognizance of this emerging trend to find common ground to devise and enact effective control strategies in addition to strengthening our borders to combat this scourge. Nigeria believes that there is a need for strict adherence to international checks on the quantities of permits imports leaving member states. This is to avoid overimportation that fuels illicit manufacturing. In this regard, Nigeria will continue to participate in all operations and initiatives of the INCB. Finally, as the world grows in knowledge and prosperity, so must humankind grow in maturity and wisdom. Care and compassion for our fellow human beings must inform all our actions. We must take appropriate measures to prevent illicit cultivation and eradicate illicit plant cultivation containing narcotic and psychotropic substances. In line with the principles of common and shared responsibility, there is a need for continuous strengthening of cooperation through information sharing and capacity building of law enforcement officers. In this regard, we continue to appreciate the technical support, capacity building, and the provision of logistics from our international partners, especially the UNODC, to secure our borders. This has gone a long way in enacting measures for addressing the challenges of illicit drug supply. Thank you.
Boot to the head.
Ow, you bullied me in the head!
Coming soon to a city near you, Cannabis Finance Boot Camp. Get all your cannabis accounting, legal, and compliance questions answered by their knowledgeable panel of industry experts who want to help your cannabis business boom. Whether you're a grower, dispensary operator, or a newcomer to the field, your cannabis business needs Cannabis Finance Boot Camp. For information on upcoming events, visit CannabisFinanceBootCamp.com.
Growing green to generate more green.
Hello to all you happy herbalizers, smiling trippy hippies, and everyone who believes in freedom and tolerance. This is The Grow Show, and I'm Kyle Cushman.
From food to fuel, from remedy to resource.
Welcome my guest, Ed Rosenthal, the guru of ganja. Let me ask you, right now I hear your lighter clicking. Are you smoking indoor or are you smoking sun-grown?
What am I smoking? I'm smoking concentrate.
Way to get out of the answer there. So you're truly like the king, right? You just clap your hands and somebody brings you a bowl and you're all set, right?
I wish that were the case.
The Grow Show with Kyle Cushman, only on CannabisRadio.com. Great websites today need expert web design and development and need to be e-commerce ready and mobile friendly. But building a marketable and profitable website can be an uphill climb. Ready to make your new website or replace your existing website? Think Orange as the new way to get in the black. Orange Hill Development works with Fortune 500 companies and offer the same top quality development service at a fraction of what other providers charge. Brands like Absolute, Carlsberg, and Nestea trust Orange Hill Development. Find out why you should trust your website with Orange Hill. Contact Orange Hill for a consultation today at orangehilldevelopment.com.
Reforming America's marijuana prohibition laws takes education, lobbying, and voting. From Washington, D.C. to your state capital to your city hall, marijuana law reform involves all levels of civic life. Learn how you can make your impact with elected officials as we take a look at our government at work. We now continue your government at work with the delegate from Pakistan.
Chair, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. Distinguished guests, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. The United Nations General Assembly session, a special session on drug, is an important opportunity for the assembled nations to reflect on failures and successes of the drug control regime. A straightforward evaluation of the achievements and failures under the existing international drug control regime could show us the real picture. This would have been possible only if the drug control conventions and treaties were implemented in their true spirit. We are witnessing mixed approach in implementation of the drug control regime. In some parts of the world, legalized recreational use of narcotics drug is defeating the spirit of the universally accepted international drug control conventions. Branded interpretation of harm reductions and human rights igniting the supply chain have confused the entire drug control regime. However, we on our part stand committed to a balanced approach as envisioned in the Political Declaration and Plan of Action 2009. We believe that solution of the world drug problem lies in correct and honest implementation of these conventions through a balanced approach.
Ladies and gentlemen, supply reduction is an essential component of a well-balanced strategic approach to control drug. Demand reduction efforts would not succeed without limiting drugs availability. Supply reduction has both domestic and international dimensions. In Pakistan, domestically, supply reduction includes enforcement of anti-drug laws, eradication of poppy cultivation, control on precursor chemicals, interdiction operations, prosecutions, and asset investigation. Internationally, our supply reduction effort include enhancing international cooperation in the fight against drugs by maintaining liaison with all international partners. Intelligence-based coordinated operations and international controlled delivery operations are the tools to fight the drugs trafficking internationally. In pursuance to UN Conventions 1988, the Government of Pakistan has made necessary legislation in the form of Control of Narcotics Substances Act 1997, which also has the provisions which exclusively deal with international cooperation and mutual legal assistance with the foreign states in relation to the investigation and trial of cases related to illicit drugs. Ladies and gentlemen, strict law enforcement is the key to successful supply reduction operations. Interdiction operations throughout the production, transportation, storage, distribution, concealment, and transit stages impose caution, disrupt drug flow, increase risk to traffickers, drive them to less efficient routes and methods, and prevent significant amounts of drugs from transiting through Pakistan. Interdiction also generates intelligence that can be used against trafficking organizations in both international and domestic operations. Despite technological and capacity gaps, our performance both domestically and internationally has been par excellence and widely appreciated. Our counter-drug operations, spearheaded by the premier counter-drug agency, Anti-Narcotic Force, with the active participation from the Counter-Drugs Interagency Task Force, which comprises 18 federal and 14 provincial law enforcement agencies. Ladies and gentlemen, now let me briefly highlight our success stories as a result of aforesaid policy we adopted. We are poppy-free state for the last 16 years. Last year, Pakistan seized 367 tons of illicit drugs, surpassing all previous records. Conviction rate of our leading drug law enforcement agency is almost 90%. We froze assets worth millions of dollars belonging to drug traffickers, and during the last 2 years, we dismantled 28 international drug trafficking organizations. Ladies and gentlemen, when we talk of human rights of drug traffickers and alternative to incarceration, we must consider for once that the drug traffickers and their accomplices have snatched the rights of 245 million people across the globe to exist. They have caused miseries to millions of their dependents, mostly children and women. They have caused irreparable loss to the social order, legal economies, and rule of law. Of course, the human rights of drug patients are widely respected across the globe. Excellencies, drug business accumulates illegal money, which in most cases is laundered. To curb the tendency, Pakistan has enacted Anti-Money Laundering Act 2010, which provides basis for legislation and prosecution of the money laundering related cases. Financial Monitoring Unit has also been established in State Bank of Pakistan. We have made sufficient progress in this regard. Ladies and gentlemen, in the end, I would like to reiterate that whatever we promote and decide in these coming days would be setting the destiny of future generations. I pray for the divine guidance and perfect vision for all of us individually as well as collectively. I thank you for your attention.
Check, check. Check. And now, the delegate from the European Union.
thank you very much. The supply reduction is a key element of any comprehensive drug policy. As far as the EU is concerned, I would like to make a few points. The first one is that, as everybody knows, the EU drug market, the drug market is a very complex one. It's one of the biggest criminal markets. It's a highly dynamic market where multi-drug trafficking takes place and new technologies plays an important role. The complexities of this market should be understood to develop any proper reaction. Second point, we try to develop a systematic answer, a comprehensive answer to this very complex problem. For that, we have developed what we call the EU policy cycle. The current EU policy cycle concentrates on cocaine, heroin, and synthetic drug trafficking. It relies on a number of key principles. One of these key principles is international cooperation on what is a cross-border crime. Another key principle is a full use of the concept of intelligence-led policing. Another fundamental element is also the strong emphasis made on the evaluation of the result achieved so as to be able to adapt our policies. Third key point, in order to implement this complex policy cycle, you need appropriate tools. The first one is a tool to evaluate, analyze, gather information on the problems, and this is the reason why we have set up a monitoring center that helps us understanding this complex problem. The second key instrument is Europol, the European Union Agency for Law Enforcement, supports member states in preventing and combating all forms of serious international organized crime and therefore obviously drugs crime. Fourth point, all our activities, we as the EU, we want all our activities to take place in a good agreed international framework. And in this regard, we are very happy to see that the UNGAS outcome document outline an extensive list of operational recommendations that we think are very useful to tackle supply reduction. We very much welcome this recommendation. We very much welcome the fact that they insist on preventing measures to address vulnerabilities that enable organized crime. We very much welcome the provision for strengthening international cooperation on criminal matters, and we very much welcome the focus on illicit activity of a larger scale and a more serious nature. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Russ Belville Show is proudly sponsored
This is
by
the Russ
Marijuana
Belville
Business
Show
Association.
on CannabisRadio.com.
MJBA, called by NBC News the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, is the fastest growing business association in the fastest growing industry in America. I've been working with the MJBA for years, and I personally invite you to join the MJBA. MJBA also publishes the popular MJ Headline News on Facebook and the MJNewsNetwork.com and Marijuana Channel 1 on YouTube. Visit mjba.net for more details.
Georgia. Hi, this is Willie Nelson. Alcohol prohibition didn't work in the 1920s, and marijuana prohibition isn't working today. It's time we stopped arresting responsible marijuana smokers. It's the fair thing to do.
For more information, contact NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Call toll-free 888-67-NORML or visit their website at norml.org.
The next generation of vaporizers has arrived. Vuber vaporizers are blazing the way with unparalleled technology for oil, concentrate, or dry flower pens. Providing unsurpassed customer service and expert craftsmanship, Vuber vaporizers use cutting-edge technology, providing a power-packed, smoother vapor with a lifetime guarantee. Experience vaporizing the way it was meant to be. The Vuber way.
While humans have been using cannabis for medicinal purposes for over 5,000 years, medical science is only beginning to unlock the secrets of the endocannabinoid system and the promise of cannabinoid medicines. Join us now for the latest cannabinoid medicine update. Good day, tokers and tokettes. Radical Russ here at the Museum of Drug Policy, a very interesting temporary 3-day museum that's just popped up here on Park Avenue, and I've run into Dr. Sue Sisley. Hello, Dr. Sue.
Hi, everybody.
Now, we're really excited to talk to you because the rumor has it there's this brand new organization that's going to be kicking ass on drug reform. Tell us all about it.
Yes, we're a new nonprofit called Doctors for Cannabis Regulation, and we just launched yesterday, and we're so thrilled. We had a terrific teleconference with tons of media outlets talking about the important, basically what we're trying to do is create a sanctuary for physicians to speak publicly about their support of full adult legalization in this country. And we, are really thrilled to finally see common sense and public health prevail over drug war propaganda.
So this is going beyond doctors calling for medicinal applications of cannabis, but also calling for decriminalization, regulation, legalization as a harm reduction measure?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually don't even focus on medical cannabis. That's not part of our mission. We're strictly, laser focused on trying to end prohibition nationally, and then ultimately our board hopes to expand internationally and work with other countries. We've already gotten tons of inquiries from physicians worldwide who've heard about our group, who want to participate and see if we can help influence their drug policy also. So we're basically focused squarely on full adult legalization, creating a tax and regulate model in all the states so that eventually, ultimately the idea would be to remove physicians as gatekeepers from these medical cannabis programs. I don't think any of us like the idea of being a gatekeeper for a God-given plant that has never been put through the proper drug development process. We want, the plant to be fully decriminalized, fully descheduled, not rescheduled. That's important to emphasize that we don't believe in rescheduling at all. We know that it has to be descheduled in order to achieve full legalization, in order to achieve the end of these absurd barriers to research. And that's a big part of how I entered this. The reason I was so enthusiastic about joining this board of directors is because, of course, we've become experts in the barriers to marijuana research over the last 6 years with our PTSD study being systematically impeded by the government. I've got firsthand knowledge now on how the government has been able to stonewall this study, because the truth is you cannot study the cannabis plant, the efficacy of the cannabis plant, in an atmosphere of prohibition. We've proven that it's impossible to do this. And so most scientists can't afford to be languishing for 6 years waiting for a study to get underway. And so we are eager to see legalization implemented nationally and to see research finally flourish in this country.
20 years ago, when we saw the first major breakthrough, California and Arizona passed medical cannabis initiatives. Of course, Arizona's called for a prescription, so it didn't work. But the reaction from the federal government, the Clinton administration, specifically Chief of Staff Rahm Emanuel, was to try to shut down doctors' free speech rights, to go after them if they even recommended cannabis. We had to go to the Supreme Court to get that right. So who are on your board of directors, these brave doctors, and how difficult is it to get doctors to speak out like this?
Yeah, well, it's surprising how easily we managed to get 53 physicians, some of the most prominent, highly credentialed physicians in the country, to join not just the board of directors, but this growing list of founding members. And we're so pleased because these are really mainstream physicians. I mean, one of the problems is that the docs who usually speak out about this are often sort of on the fringe. They're often naturopaths and folks, but these are mainstream MDs and DOs that are acknowledging that the harms of criminalizing this plant and saying this must end, that we view this as a public health crisis now. The racial disparities are sickening and it needs to stop. And I'm really proud of it. And I think what you'll see is the quality of the physicians who've taken the lead in this group, people like that you probably know these names, the incredible Julie Holland, the author of the Pot Book. We have Donald Abrams on our honorary board, Andy Weil on our honorary board, some just terrific people. We have former Surgeon General Jocelyn Elders calling for full legalization. And, and yesterday we even had Wesley Clark join. Yes, and Wesley Clark participated in this national teleconference and said some really powerful things about why this is so urgent. So I think we're in a great position to be able to bring along a lot of new doctors and create a real sanctuary for physicians to finally feel free to come out and speak openly about this. Because the truth is, when I speak to my physician colleagues privately, whether it's in the doctor's lounges, at dinners and things, we always talk about how unfair, how unjust it is that our society continues to criminalize this plan. But to get them to speak on the record about that has been impossible. So now we're going to create a forum where they can come out and talk about this without fear of retribution and reprisal, because they're going to be surrounded by other like-minded physicians who are also at the level they are, and they're going to hopefully find the courage to do that. We're really thrilled about. We're getting a lot of momentum. We had an incredible piece in the Washington Post last week where they highlighted. They went over all the mission of the group and the vision moving forward. And one of the interesting things was they quoted DuPont in the article, who said, who's clearly a prohibitionist. And
Robert DuPont.
Yeah, Robert DuPont said, and I'm not quoting him properly, but he said that he thinks that ending prohibition is an incredibly idiotic idea, and that he said that he thinks that the criminal justice system is an extremely effective method of treating addicts. So it's so helpful when we have opponents like that who are making completely absurd statements like that we can easily challenge publicly. And I think that the public support for our work, it's great to be on the side of common sense and good reasoning. And we feel like we're taking the right position here, and people like Robert DuPont are completely out of step with the rest of the public.
The American Medical Association hasn't even come around on medical cannabis. How are you going to interface with that organization and get them to come around?
The good news is we don't need them. I mean, organized medicine has become, completely irrelevant. Over the last few decades, they've lost, millions of members. There's very few. In most states, organized medicine represents under 20% of the physician community. And so that's, it's great that there's most doctors are free thinkers, and they don't need to look to organized medicine to tell them how to view this idea. The issue about ending unfair reforming drug policies that are bad for patients is a common sense issue. It's actually embedded in the AMA Code of Ethics. If you see one of the principles of our ethical code is that we will abide by the laws of our nation, but we will also seek to change laws that are detrimental to our patients. And this is a clear damage to patients. The harms of criminalization are so obvious, and I think that we have a duty as physicians who see the harms of criminalizing this plan every day, to see families torn apart, to see lives ruined by being thrown in cages and all. It's so obvious that we have a duty to our patients and to our communities to take a very public stand on this now and stop living in complacency so I'm really excited to go toe to toe with the AMA and if they don't come around, certainly we'll be eager to debate them at every turn and show them why their thinking is so antiquated and why it's time to come together with the rest of society and say that that's what this was supposed to be about, right? UNGAS was supposed to be about finally reevaluating antiquated drug policies and creating reform, but I don't see that happening here, and that's sad. I mean, we're all here with each other, at least, creating a groundswell of support, and hopefully we'll be able to stop people along the way and persuade them to reconsider their old thinking.
Let's hope so. Final question. We ran into you first because you were granted that FDA study rights for PTSD and medical cannabis. Can you give us a quick update on that?
Yeah, the good news is that we're getting closer to starting. After 6 years of being impeded by the government, we had a successful DEA inspection a few weeks ago, and the DEA Schedule 1 license is the only thing prohibiting us from moving forward. Once we get a Schedule 1 license, I'll be allowed to purchase marijuana study drug from the University of Mississippi. I'll be able to then start screening patients. We'll create an 800 number for veterans to call and be screened so we can enroll patients both at my site in Phoenix, and we have a second site at the Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore. So we're really thrilled. I will be announcing some big news later this week after 420 about the study, which I'm excited to update you on. But so far, things are looking optimistic finally after so many years of delays. That's how the DEA usually has won at this, is by suppressing scientific research, you can't create, there's no opportunity to look at data that might legitimize cannabis as medicine. So I always felt that was their strategy here, but I'm starting to see that we're breaking through, and the DEA is starting to realize the public pressure on them to stop blocking this work. So hopefully later in the week we'll be able to update you on this big announcement.
That's great stuff. Dr. Sue Sisley, tell us the name of the organization again and any contact info people need to join it.
Absolutely. So it's Doctors for Cannabis Regulation. It's the hashtag is Doctors Say Legalize, and the website is dfcr.org.
dfcr.org. Check it out. Sue, thank you for joining us.
You got it.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Hey everybody, it's Radical Russ here from 420 Radio, inviting you to be like me and get your ink done at Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo, Fort Worth's most female-friendly, clean, sterile, awesome tattoo shop. Thomas and his crew are true artists who can design you a custom piece or use a design you bring in. Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo also offers all styles of tattooing as well as piercings and all-around fun. In the DFW area, stop by Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo and tell them Radical Russ sent you. Trust me, it'll feel awesome.
NORMAL stands for Responsible Adult Cannabis Use. If cannabis use is causing problems in your life, consider taking a break or seeking medical assistance. Consider ceasing cannabis use if you have a family history of mental illness. Don't drive or operate heavy machinery while impaired by cannabis use. Cannabis use is not without risks, even though the risks may be far less than those posed by legal drugs.
Don't want to spend money on a night out, but don't know what to do other than watching TV or playing video games? Consider playing guitar, bass, banjo, or mandolin. The instrument will give you hours of entertainment with friends with minimal expense. Stop by the Fingerboard Extension downtown Corvallis at 120 Northwest 2nd Street today, or check out its inventory on the web at fingerboardextension.com.
The cannabis community is a diverse set of people from all walks of life, conservative and liberal, black and white, straight and gay, rich and poor, and everyone in between. Learn more about the people we are freeing from adult cannabis prohibition in our Cannabis Community Chat.
I would like to introduce three people who are very important to this space. Kasia Malinowska from OSF, Alisa Aguilera from Vocal, and Pedro Arenas from Indepaz de Colombia.
Thank you. So good evening, I guess, everyone. I feel like I need to transform myself in the next 30 seconds from the person that was sitting at the UN, getting slightly frustrated, but playing the game and being polite, and somewhat diplomatic, and having a conversation about what we could do to drug policy, to improve lives of people through changing drug policy, to this space with real people, real passions, real opinions. Let me just breathe and go through that moment of transformation. So we, with many of you, have been preparing for the UN General Assembly session for now probably around 18 months. And a lot of people are asking me, I spend a lot of time today talking to journalists, and they were asking me, so how upset are you, or how disappointed are you with the outcome document that we adopted today, and with the process that is in place? And I think it will probably be surprising to a number of you who know me and who have been working with me on this, that I'm actually not that upset. I actually think that the outcome document that we have in front of us is not ideal, but it's certainly, there's some wins. One obvious win in the outcome document is the access to pain medicines. People who have been advocating in the world of palliative care know how difficult it is to obtain opioids for people who are in dramatic, awful pain. And this is the win of this UNGAS. And it's not an insignificant win. We now have language of human rights. We got rid of drug-free world, we can do it. We transformed that into drug-free, world free of drug addiction, which, you know, is a step in the right direction. So I actually come into the meeting with somewhat of a positive outcome, but I really think that the real discussion and the real passion and the real learning is going to happen here. We have been inviting many of our colleagues in the diplomatic community to join us. I hope they do. If you see people with badges which have country names, please say hi to them. Please keep on engaging them. Because really what we are planning for now is for the next 3 years. Next UNGAS 2019, let's hope is a moment that is even of a greater transformation. What we wanted to articulate here with amazing help of Michael and his team was the real lives of people and how they're touched by the current drug policies. From the moms whose kids are disappeared as you walk in, through this amazing art project of a person who spent years in federal prison for drug possession, through awful, dramatic, very sad stories of people who were executed for drug possession. So we hope that you are inspired by this beautiful art. I hope you are inspired to keep on talking to each other, to build alliances, to be even better when we come here in 3 years, to understand that this is about real lives, and that you really use this space as your own. Feel free to invite government officials for meetings with you here. Feel free to sit under a picture of someone who has been executed. Let's make it real. Thank you all very much for being here.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Alisa Aguilera. I'm the co-executive director of an amazing organization called Vocal New York. We are, louder. We are a grassroots community organizing group. We build power among low-income people impacted by HIV, AIDS, the war on drugs, and mass incarceration. Many of the faces you see here are our members. The video in the back are our members. We are one of the most winning grassroots organizations in the city, passing laws to expand access to naloxone, ending the marijuana arrest crusade, et cetera, et cetera. I could go on and on. But what I wanted to share a quick story about today was a story I had a conversation with my grandma, who's 90 years old, and we were in San Antonio, Texas, where I grew up. My family immigrated, border crossed us type thing, from Mexico, and my grandma had this major nerve pain, and she was complaining, and I came into the space, and it was my grandma and my aunt and my grandma's friend from church, and they were talking about how they wanted to try medical marijuana, how my grandma needed to get medical marijuana, and they had no idea how to get it. They said, oh, maybe we could just drive to Colorado and bring it back. I thought that was really a far trip, and they probably, that's kind of illegal still, and probably not the best idea. Then we started going through all my cousins that may have the connect and who it could be. And, at the end, they were like, oh, I can't believe it's so hard. How are we going to get it? And I was like, oh my God, I've been waiting my whole career to have this conversation. To say, well, actually, in the early 1900s, when you and your family came here, my grandma was born in 1925 in San Antonio, it was because we brought marijuana to Texas and to the United States that the federal government decided that they wanted to enact marijuana prohibition. And those same laws have evolved so that in New York City, I'm still working on a campaign where 90% of the people who are arrested for low-level marijuana possession in this city, on these streets, are Black and Latino New Yorkers, young men in particular. And the way that we don't even remember our own history, and the way that really what was criminalized was our culture, right? It was about medicines and herbs and ways that we can heal ourselves, ways that we can actually find end the suffering in our bodies through marijuana was criminalized because of who we are. And I think one of the things I've learned in doing this work around drug policy is that it's not just about the drugs, it's about the coercion. Because now that they've found that marijuana is something they can make money off of, they're just doing it direct and making our bodies illegal. And so when we're talking about drug policy and we're in this space, especially in the context of the United States, we need to remember that racial justice is the fight. And drug policy is ways that are used to oppress Black and Latino and communities of color and poor people. And we need to make sure to have a broad look and to remember our history, because it's drugs now, but it's going to be something else in the future.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Pedro Arenas. I come from Colombia. I work with in the past. In this institute is an observatory of coca growers and population involved in the cultivation of coca production and poppy production and marijuana production. My role, my task is especially put in the agenda of the rights of the farmer and rural workers, especially. I remember, for example, when I was 12 years old only, I worked picking the coca leaf with my hands in my son. My family was very poor in my community. The poverty was a reality all time, include today. This situation is similar in all countries with the production of coca and amapola or poppy and marijuana. In this space is a good space, it's a good place. Thank you for the team for organizing this place. Thank you for the support for this place, for this site. In this site is a space too for the farmers and rural workers. For example, in this room is a photography about the rural workers with coca leaf. Many diplomats in Angas not believe the population involved in this activity is not visible, is people not real. The diplomats believe only in the industries, in the business, but not in the rights of the people. This place is about this situation. Welcome to the museum. Welcome to this place for the following 3 days. This place is for you. This place is for the memory, especially for the thousands of the victims of the war on drugs, the stupid rules about the drugs. This is rules for chance. All together, it's possible chant this rule. In the future, the prohibition is only for memory. In the future, the prohibition no is real. In the future is other time for our. Thank you.
It was an amazing event there at the Museum of Drug Policy. Melissa Harris Perry doing her show live, John Forte playing for us, and all of that. We'll bring you more highlights throughout the rest of the week, but that's all the time we got for this first hour. Thanks for joining us. For everyone here at CannabisRadio.com, from the United Nations, I'm Radical Russ. Until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at RadicalRuss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!